So you're listening to Speaking of Voice Acting, and my guest today, another special guest. I mean, they're all special, but this one even more so. The voice of Sen in Hails from the Commonwealth. I don't even know the name of my own mod. He's also voiced for other mods, including Interesting NPCs. He was the voice of Skell. He also voiced other mods, Legacy of the Dragonborn, Spectraverse, Dwemer Tech, Beyond Skyrim, Bruma, as well as professional video games like Space Pirates and Zombies 2. So the list is long, so without further ado, it's Will Handford. How you doing?
Hey,
Will?
everyone. I am great, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it almost seemed like a comedy skit where they just read off all your list of credits and it just goes on and on. There's like a paper that rolls all the way to the floor.
The entire podcast is just my list of clients.
Yeah. 60 minutes later, we're finally at the introduction, and it's like...
You can't talk anymore. You have laryngitis.
Yeah.
And I've just been silent the entire time.
It feels like some kind of, like it's been done before in like a comedy skit. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or something. I don't know. But before my voice does actually get sore, like, how are you doing? It's time for you to talk.
I am well. I am doing very good. I worked a little bit on my Twitch channel earlier today. It's been a very lazy Saturday so far. I got some tea next to me. It's very warm and very nice on the vocal cords. But yeah,
we usually talk about Twitch last, but since you mentioned it, might as well talk about that first. So what kind of games do you play on your
we can
Twitch
plug
channel?
it in both areas, I guess.
Let's just talk about it randomly and sporadically throughout the podcast.
Yeah, every 10 minutes I'll just be like, make sure to follow me on Twitch.
Yeah. It'll just be like random, like nonsensical segues.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
We'll be talking about Skyrim, and by the way, you know what Skyrim Bruma reminds me of? Your Twitch channel.
Even though I've never played Skyrim on it.
The way this NPC twitches when he talks, it makes me think of Twitch, and that makes me think.
Speaking of which,
so yeah, speaking of which, talk about your Twitch channel.
Yeah, I have a Twitch channel. I just started it beginning of February, so it is a very, very young channel. But it's called Voice Snacks, which is a kind of a handle I've been using for a little while now. It used to be a part of my YouTube channel, where I would make just tiny, stupid little sketches and whatnot featuring me and some sound effects, and I called them Voice Snacks. Then I got busy and I stopped making them. So...
It does make sense because they're little snacks, like
exactly of snacks of voice work. That's exactly my thought process when I came up with the name. But yeah, I just carried that name over into my Twitch channel, and so far it's been a lot of fun and really good. I'm not huge yet by any means, but yeah,
you're still a snack. In about
a year,
yeah, in about a year you'll be voice dinner or
voice it is a bite-sized Twitch channel. I'm not voiced feast yet.
Yeah. Someday, though, that's what you're aiming for. It's like it's levels to it.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. So, what kind of games do you play in particular?
Lately, I've been playing Monster Hunter World almost exclusively on the channel. I also play some indie games here and there. I picked up Into the Breach not too long ago, that's a very interesting game and really cool. I also played Transistor for the first time.
Oh, nice.
On the channel recently. And that's also a very good game. I mean, it's made by Supergiant Games, same people who did Bastion and Pyre.
Yeah.
So
I like Bastion.
Their pedigree for quality work is very well established.
When you pick a game, is it just a game that you like, or is there something where you can add voices to it, or something that's less popular?
It's pretty much a game that I like. Like since taking Monster World for example, or Monster Hunter World for example. Monster World is something different. Monster Hunter World, since it came out in January, I've pretty much been playing it nonstop. So that would just be something that I do normally, but now I've decided to actually do it live with other people joining me. And it's given me an excuse to actually take a break from my busy life to play video games again, which is a hobby I really enjoy.
And so when you're talking about other people joining, you're talking about like the audience engagement as opposed to like other people playing the game with you as a stream?
Well, I do also have other people on stream. Primarily my brother joins me for the Monster Hunter streams. Okay. I also play with a group of my friends in Overwatch every once in a while. But yeah, mostly I'm talking about the audience.
So you're having that. Is there any goal that you have for the Twitch channel? I mean,
so far I'm just trying to hit affiliate, which is has a list of criteria that Twitch has laid out. It's like 50 followers, 5 viewers on average, something like that, and then you apply for the affiliate program, and that's when you actually start getting like subscriptions and donations and stuff like that.
Oh, nice,
so
nice.
So hey everybody, go follow me on Twitch so I can start making money.
Twitch.com/voice-snacks?
Yep, twitch.tv/voice-snacks.
TV. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just edit that out so it sounds seamless.
I mean, you can put it in the description or whatever.
Yeah, definitely we'll do that. We'll put all your links down there.
All right.
But yeah, the main reason that you're on here is to talk about acting. And
Yes.
So talk about your acting talent. So let's talk about that. How did you first start acting? Like get into it, like as a child or a teenager or as an adult?
The first time I ever considered myself doing the craft of acting was definitely in high school. Junior year, I started doing the theater program in my high school. The first thing I got casted in was The Importance of Being Earnest, and I only played a bit part in that one as a butler. But I found it to be really fun, and I kind of caught the acting bug off of that. So I started taking more acting classes in high school, started doing more theater. And then when I graduated, I went to Ohio University for their acting program, their theater program. And unfortunately, after the end of the first year, I decided I didn't want to make theater a career. So, for several reasons, not least of which was that the prospects suck.
Yeah.
They're so bad.
Are you a fan of the classics, though, and that kind of...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love acting as a craft, but as a job, it's a little problematic. Especially in the financial department. So I decided to transfer over to the Columbus College of Art and Design, which is an art school here in my hometown of Columbus. And that's where I will have graduated from. But while I was going there, I still wanted to do acting. And I'm an animator in my day job. So I thought, what's a good way to combine animation and acting? And the logical conclusion there was voice acting. Because with cartoons and whatnot, obviously you need voices. All the classics, Mel Blanc, Mark Hamill, some third actor. I'm always terrible at coming up with the third in any list. But anyway.
Troy Baker and Nolan North.
There we go.
Video game ones are the ones I know.
3 and 4. See, that's why you're here, Chris.
Yeah.
To come up with my 3 and 4.
Yeah, exactly. Just to complete your sentences, more or less.
Yeah, basically. We finish each other's...
sentences.
There it is. But yeah, so I landed on starting to do voice acting all throughout art school. And luckily, my art school did have a recording booth, so I would just lock myself in the recording booth when nobody else had time for hours on end, and basically just talk and shout to myself incessantly in the recording booth. To this day, I don't know if anybody could hear me on the outside, and if they did, I probably would have been institutionalized, so I think I'm good.
So is that when you started to practice? Because you do a range of voices. Like I said, you done Skell, you did Coraline the Tailor, and Moorbush. And so there's a lot of, that's an orc, that's a skeleton, and that's a high elf. And then you have
and all the voices is Skell the Grey, Coraline, and Moorbush. So yeah.
Did you have that skill, or did you train it as you started getting voice acting, or was that something you used in theater?
I definitely didn't have it initially. Building range was something I had to work on. But I think those just me talking to myself for hours on end in a recording booth definitely helped, because it just let me go to the extremes of my voice. And then eventually, after I graduated art school, I actually started to take it seriously, and I recorded a demo. I posted it on the Skyrim Nexus forums, and I think that's how you found me. So for the past 6 years, I've kind of just been doing that and developing my skills as an actor.
Yeah, and I think the first character in Quest we had you do was the whole skill tailor-made thing. Mm-hmm. And I think
that was intimidating to have as a first thing, because I contacted you and it was like, hey, here's my demo. And you're like, hey, it sounds pretty good. Here's this character with 40 pages of dialogue. And I'm like, oh, shit.
And that's not normal, I think, because I think for the Interesting NPCs stuff, there was a lot. It was really, really heavy on the dialogue, because that's all I knew how to do at first, right?
Mm-hmm,
I didn't know how to make quests. I didn't know. So what I did was I made NPCs, and they were essentially storybooks. So you talk to them.
And I believe Skell is a companion too, so he needs to have just intermittent dialogue while the player is just walking around as well. And so that also increases the line count.
Yeah, that all developed over time. at first, I mean, had I known I was going to make quests, had I known I was going to make him a companion, I would have trimmed down the start dialogue to make it a lot more simple, right? But because it started out as just an NPC, and the NPC was supposed to be interesting and captivating to talk to on their own, they're supposed to have a story on their own. That sort of padded it. So you have the initial dialogue, which is longer than normal. You then you on top of that, you have the companion dialogue, and then you have the quest, and then I asked you to voice other characters in the quest as well. So it was pretty crazy true. For a first go through.
Yeah, I think it was a good baptism by fire, though. Like, that really inundated me as to, like, okay, here's the work that is required to be a voice actor. And I figured if I got through that just fine, then I could probably do this.
Yeah. And I'm sure for the other mods you've done, like you've done Beyond Skyrim, Bruma, Legacy of Dragonborn, I'm sure it was a lot less dense because of that reason.
Actually, funnily enough, no, it was not. So I have 3 actual characters that I voice in Beyond Skyrim, Bruma. Cadus Perusius, Aranir, and Viscount Marcius Carvane.
Oh, okay.
But beyond that, the additional voices that I'm credited with in that one was just random NPCs that are out there. So it's like recycled boilerplate dialogue in Skyrim. And that was, I think, about 30 pages of
Holy
just
crap.
like kind of lines that didn't really have much to do with one another. It's just flavor text.
Right. I think, so in that case, yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of work, because I think if you're trying to have like the NPCs like react to any kind of scenario possible, like if the player's naked, if the player's doing this, that's something
exactly.
I definitely wanted to avoid. But if you had to do that, yeah, that sounds like...
Yeah, so that's the dialogue, like if you shoot a bandit in the head and he's like, what was that?
Yeah.
Guess nothing's here. And he's still got the arrow stuck in his head.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that kind of dialogue.
Which is good if you can get it done. It's just really, really hard. So I mean, I think that's speaks to like the quality of that mod. It has that much depth.
It's very, very comprehensive.
Yeah.
As a mod, it might as well just be an expansion on the game, because they basically made Bruma like brick from Oblivion. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And there's a lot of friends of the show who are voice acted besides yourself. I think Jay did voices for that. I'm not sure who else.
Jay did, Anna did. I believe Jess was in it as well.
Oh yeah.
They actually have an IMDb page for that mod, so you can probably go check it out and just pick out interesting NPCs actors that are credited in it.
I mean, it's a small community. We all sort of there's a little bit of a... I don't want to say incest, because that sounds wrong, but I'm trying to think of a better term besides incestuous. But it's a little bit of that.
Yeah. I mean, oh boy, it is family-like, I guess. I mean, because you've had actors come and go over the years, doing just little bit parts here and there. But there is like a small collection of regulars, I would say, in the Interesting NPC crew. But yeah, you can see a lot of those.
And a lot of you, here's an excellent segue, do a podcast together, don't you? Nights or something? Isn't that it?
Oh, right. Jess actually tipped me off for that one. Yeah, that's Nights by Twisted Isle Productions. They have the first season of their thing. It's like a fantasy storytelling podcast with a whole bunch of voice actors and whatnot. Jess is in it. She plays one of the... two of the main roles. And then I have a small bit part in, I think, 2 or 3 episodes as the Gadanin spy. And he actually sounds a lot like Nair from your Interesting NPCs quest. Or mod. Yeah. Interesting NPCs mod. So it's kind of that low, like...
Khajiit thingy.
Yeah, low Khajiit voice. But I kind of leaned on... a Spaniard type voice for that one, so very smooth, very sexy accent and that kind of thing. Nice. I am the Gadanin spy.
See, when I hear that, my mind turns to Nair. I start thinking Khajiit, but it's probably a human, right? We're probably talking about a person.
Yeah, I think we're talking human this time around. Yeah, and he definitely doesn't refer to himself in the third, second, whatever person that Khajiit refer to themselves.
He has no fur.
Yeah,
his penis isn't barbed.
That I know of.
No tail.
I don't know. I guess I didn't do enough characterization on that guy.
No method acting there?
I don't know.
No sticking random barbs on your wang.
On my wang.
None of
Ugh.
that.
My poor wife.
But besides Knights, you've also done an Undertale comic dub, right?
For a little while, I was working with Featherfall Studios, which they're a small little media studio on YouTube. So I did a Undertale comic dub where I voiced Sans, and I also did a Franbo fan dub. If you're not familiar with what Franbo is, it is a indie point-and-click adventure game that also has like horror elements. It's very good. I've played it all the way through, and I highly recommend it.
And it's not voice acted in the game? Is that why? Like
That's correct. Yeah, it's only text. So I basically got together with some of the people in Featherfall and was like, hey, what if we did a fan dub of this game? And we casted, God, so many people, dozens. I think, so we posted up the casting call on castingcallclub.com, and I think we got upwards of like 500 auditions.
Wow.
Yeah, so me and this other person that I was working with had to comb through that and distill it down to like 24 roles. And we got the first chapter out, and then we kind of lost touch with each other, and it kind of just fizzled out. But the first chapter is up for people to watch.
It looks like a very dark game.
It is, absolutely. Deals a lot with psychological horror and insanity. Those are the main themes. So.
And you voice Remor and Mr. Midnight. That sounds
Remor and Mr.
Remor,
Midnight, yes. Remor is an evil demon from another dimension, and Mr. Midnight is a cat.
Oh. I had that backwards. I thought Remor would be the cat, Mr. Midnight would be the demon.
Nope, other way around.
It's a twist. And like you said, you voice Sans, which is like a huge deal because he's like one of the big characters, right?
Right. I mean, it was a very short comic dub. But yeah, that was fun. And I'm a huge fan of the Undertale game. So it was cool to actually voice one of my favorite characters from it.
Is there any pressure in like giving him a voice because it's such a big deal? He's Sans.
If there wasn't such a saturated audience for Undertale, it would be a big deal. It'd be like trying to voice Link from Zelda.
Yeah.
But yeah, Undertale has propagated itself so much in the internet, and there's so many different versions of people doing Sans that it's pretty low pressure as long as you don't totally fuck it up.
Do you find that there's kind of like a coalescing of those voices? Like maybe that they're sort of like gradually shifting to a specific type of voice?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sans, pretty much on the whole, is kind of has a low, dopey voice, maybe a Boston accent a little bit.
Nice.
Which is the voice I actually used in the comic dub.
So he's wicked smart. Like that.
Wicked smart, yeah. Hey, I'm named Sans, bada boom. But yeah, like, Papyrus, pretty much across the board, people liken him to Skeletor from He-Man. He has the high-pitched, crackly voice.
Which is our Skell voice, too.
Yeah, exactly. Which I believe I've said on another one of your videos that was the beginning and end of the characterization for Skell. Yeah. Is that he was a skeleton, so I'm going to make him sound like Skeletor.
Yeah. I mean, there really is no reference because skeletons don't have tongues. They're not supposed to talk. I mean,
exactly.
They could have low moaning voices, but it's
just astounding to me how ubiquitous that voice is across skeleton characters. Yeah, like that's the first thing that pops into people's minds.
It's either Skeletor or it's because it's creaky bones. I'm not sure, but because
I think it's the creaky bone thing.
Yeah. But because there's a standard set, you kind of have to live up to that expectation in a way, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good because it like adds the immersion. Like it puts people in that setting like, okay, this is what a skeleton sounds like. It's what it's supposed to sound like. This is authentic. The only bad thing is it could become stereotypical. You don't want to like sound too much like something else. But I think with skeletons, I mean, it's pretty much like that's the standard that's been set. So.
I mean, you have your choice of like low risk voice that everybody knows, or you can go high risk, high reward and do something unique, which might not necessarily work. But if it does, then you kind of become known for it.
And that's one of the things like with it's not just skeletons, it's all voices. Like if we talk about brutes, like every brute in a video game is going to be low, is going to be deep, and he's I'm
low,
big.
Gruff voice. Yeah.
Because I work out, suddenly my voice is deeper. And in real life, that is not the case. Like if you look at somebody like Mike Tyson, he sounds like a chipmunk, right? And he would be your classic like fantasy brute character. So
exactly. Mike Tyson, without any knowledge of who he is, if somebody were just to voice that guy, definitely would be lower and gruffer.
Yeah, exactly. So,
hey, I'm Mike Tyson.
Yeah. So it's weird.
I'll smash in your face.
So if if Mike Tyson didn't exist and you made a boxing game and gave like a giant dude that voice, people would riot. They would complain. They would, even though it's actually like it matches reality, people would go nuts. And see, that's what you kind of have to fight. Like, so sometimes I'm kind of tempted, like, hey, maybe I should just like go with this voice because it's unique, it's interesting, it's realistic, right?
Right.
But then it's like, are people gonna think it's inauthentic because of their perception of like what a vocal stereotype is?
Exactly. And that's kind of the balance you need to strike when you characterize a character.
Yeah.
You want to hit the most number of like likes among people, but you don't want to do it to the point where it's pandering.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I guess it really depends. If you can characterize the character through other means, like the voice isn't as critical, but a lot of times, like, you're just relying on the voice and nothing else. Especially with a lot of games where the characterization is pretty thin. You kind of need that, like, deep voice to sell that they have muscles, you know. It's like, I can't even go that low. I'm trying to be low, but it's not. But yeah, we're going off topic. Any other mods like Skyrim you want to talk about before we move on to Fallout?
Maybe touch on Legacy of the Dragonborn a little bit. That was a very interesting project. So that was another one that I got a hit from off of the Nexus. Travis contacted me and was like, hey, I like your voice. We have this curator for this giant museum mod that I'm making. He's a high elf. So I was like, okay, high elf. Kind of higher pitch, definitely British. I could totally do this.
Yeah.
So I did it. I think the first round of scripts was 10 to 12 pages. So it was a hefty amount of dialogue. But I did that. He put it in, and he loved it so much that we've kind of been back and forth for the past 2 or 3 years, just adding more and more lines to this mod. And the character I play, the character I play is Arian Morellis, who is the museum curator. But he just started out as a curator, but then Travis decided, let's add in some quests. Let's add in some companions. Hey, let's put in an entire guild that the player can join called the Explorers Guild. So yeah, it's really interesting to get in on a mod at a ground level when it starts out very little and then just watch it grow over years.
And that's the thing, because I think a lot of mods, I know it was the case for me, you start out small, you start out with something workable, and then when that's done, what's next? So you kind of just build on top of that, build, build. And then, like, as long as the people who are involved with the project stay with it, it continues to grow. But if, like, the actor kind of leaves, then it's like those NPCs suddenly get neglected or ignored, and people wonder why. But it's because logistically, like, you know, we don't have the actor anymore. So it's good that you're still working on the project. And
that was an interesting thing, voicing such a integral character to that mod. Like, if I died, basically, or whatever, he would be hard pressed to find another voice for Arian, because at this point, I voiced Arian so much, I am Arian. Right.
I think he would just, like, write off the character and replace or do something. I don't know. He would just stop working on the mod and work on another mod.
Yeah, maybe.
But and just to be clear, like, you're perfectly entitled, in your right. It's within your right to stop right now. Like,
of course, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a knock on voice actors who kind of, like, you know, if they leave halfway, that's their right. They didn't sign up to be on this for the rest of their life, right?
Unless, of course, you did sign something and you have a contract, in which case you're kind of stuck. But if you didn't, then you have every right to just leave.
Well, in the modding world, everything is pretty much volunteer, right? So there's no contract,
absolutely. So. Most everything is done for free. Travis has paid me a bit on the side, but it's mostly just a for fun project. So it's nice that he's at least kicked me some money. But I've stuck with it so long because it's fun to do.
Yeah.
And I like voicing Arian and being Arian in the mod.
Yeah, and see, I think that's, like, an admirable quality, like, in you, both yourself and other actors. The ones who are, like, and we talked about earlier about, like, how it's a bit incestuous, but the names that you always hear are the ones who kind of stick around and are willing to do the work, and then also have high quality voice and mic quality. So there's a reason that you get the same 12 people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also goes into that, though, us same 12 people, we really, really enjoy doing this just as a craft. Like, I spend so much money on my audio equipment to get it to sound good because I want to sound good and I want to do a good job for other people because I like doing VO. It's my passion.
Right. And see, I think that's the important thing. If it's not your passion, then it becomes work, and if it becomes work, then it becomes a chore. And then
Exactly.
you're kind of just, then you're not going to do it anymore. And I think that's what does happen in some cases. And it's just natural because none of us are getting paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to voice acting, you also done some writing. You wrote the alternative medicine quest for Tales from the
Correct.
Commonwealth, for those who aren't aware. Talk about that whole process, how you like decided to like do that and pitch it and bring it to life.
So yeah, basically, I noticed, you were writing quests all over the place for Tales from the Commonwealth, and I thought, I've been running D&D games for a little while, and I'm pretty good at writing quests in there. Why don't I take a crack at it for the mod? Yeah. So basically, apropos of nothing, I just started writing a mod. You didn't have a format or anything in mind, so I basically had to figure that out for myself. But I thought of characters, I thought of the quest line, and I decided to bring back one of the characters that was sort of underrepresented in one of your other mods for Fallout 3 into Fallout 4. And a character I really enjoyed voicing, which was Zen.
Yes.
So I decided to base the mod around him and add in other characters on top of that.
The fact that Audrey was already there and
Exactly.
they had an interaction made that easy.
I think that was the big catalyst, is that Audrey was already in Fallout 4, and I was like, oh, well, I voiced a character that interacted with Audrey in Fallout 3, so why don't we bring him in? And we could have this like interesting bit at the beginning where they realize that they know each other and that they've both traveled to Boston and
one
just
was
happened
trying
to
to
run into one
actively
another.
avoid the other.
Yeah, Zen was actively trying to avoid Audrey.
And the interesting thing about the character, like the whole, I don't remember all of the what went into creating him, but from what I remember, I think at the start he was supposed to speak Mandarin, but then finding like a Chinese actor who could speak at Mandarin became like an impossible task.
It was very hard.
Like we basically turned it into a guy who was sort of like mimicking the language, using it as a con. The hard part was sort of finding someone who could passively trick a non-Chinese speaking player, a non-Mandarin speaking player, but also be so unfamiliar with the language that it would sound completely fake to someone who does speak Chinese, who does speak Mandarin.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an interesting part in making the quest and writing it, is because there is that bit in there where Zen does run into a native Chinese speaker. So I actually had to find somebody who spoke Chinese, which, back to your previous point, was nearly impossible to do. Luckily, I found one guy, and he's in the mod, and he did a great job.
Yes.
He goes by Steel on Discord. I'm sorry, I don't know his real name. But yeah, he did an amazing job. But yeah, that's an interesting little twist.
So it's weird because you kind of have to write and cast around the limitations. It takes it in a direction that we might not have planned originally. That still might be great. And I think in your case, one of the things that made you perfect for the role is that you've actually studied some Chinese. You've taken some Chinese before.
I've taken a handful of Chinese classes in the past, so I definitely know the tones of the language, or at least how to fake it.
And that's exactly what we're looking for.
In a somewhat convincing way. I guarantee if a Chinese native speaker heard me speak Chinese, it would make absolutely no sense.
But see, that's perfect, right? That's
what we were leveraging for Zen, the character.
I think it was like the perfect sort of person for the role, because had we cast somebody who had familiarity with the language, it might sound too authentic, and that's what I was kind of worried about on that front. Like,
right.
He was supposed to be someone who had no exposure to the language, was faking it, was trying to like mimic.
I think there was the line in the quest that he found an English to Chinese dictionary and just memorized it. Yeah. And that's his education to learning Mandarin. Yeah. And it also made it really easy to write Zen's quote unquote Chinese dialogue, because you would just write it in English, throw it into Google Translate,
exactly.
and because Google Translate is already super inaccurate, it doesn't really matter, and then you just read that.
Exactly. Was any influences as far as like the tone of the quest? It was kind of like a classic sort of like drug deal gone bad kind of thing.
I don't think I had too many references. No, I didn't really have any source material in mind. The title of the quest, Alternative Medicine, came simply because Zen is a fake Chinese person.
Yeah.
And alternative medicine is fake Chinese medicine. So
Right.
that's kind of the parallel that I was drawing between the quest title and kind of like the tone of the quest. But other than that, I thought that a drug deal gone bad would be a fun thing to quest through.
And it was.
And it was. And to your credit, you added a bunch of nuance to the quest that I didn't think about initially, because it actually had branching paths by the time you took a look at it and kind of did a pass yourself, which I thought was a really good idea, because you meet the character Hitch, which is the drug dealer that you're trying to get like in with in order to get the shipment of laced medicine. But you would have the option to betray your party to this guy in exchange for a reward of some kind.
In comical fashion.
In comical fashion. Or you could keep siding with your party, and then there was a bunch of different ways that you could interact with... what was his name? Hitch. There it was.
Yeah, after he got injured.
After he got injured. You had the option to either torture him for information, or you could like kind of be on his side and kind of coax the information out of him that way.
Yeah, the other option was to play to his greed, more or less, and to kind of offer him a stim pack. But because the stim pack came from the store, it was a bit poetic because he didn't know whether to use it or not and whether it was laced or not. So I think that turned out pretty well on that front. And the other thing about the second option was I didn't want torture to work because, I mean, it doesn't in real life, right? I think
that's true.
That was the sort of the angle that I was trying to, especially if you're like a pacifist player and you don't want to torture another person. We wanted to put it like an angle that gave them an option, gave them an out so they didn't have to torture the guy.
Exactly.
And I think that like added to, I mean, because like your original one was brilliant, but I also thought like just giving them an extra option would help. And I think that's like sort of when you're writing your first sort of mod quest, you kind of have to think about, well, especially with Fallout, you have to think about the dialogue options and what works that way. And you also kind of have to think about like just like the different types of players who play a particular quest and what they might like to do or what they might, because I think I learned that mostly just from dealing with feedback. Like, say, well, I didn't want to say this or I didn't want to do this, and they'll send me those messages. I'm like, oh, you always kind of want to like give them an out, so to speak.
And I think us pairing on that quest was probably for the best, because I write very linearly a lot of times. So my first draft was a very linear story where the player kind of just had one path through the entire thing and it would reach the end. But then you took that feedback that you had from players into mind when you made it branching.
Yeah. And the other thing that like we probably had to fiddle with is just like the limitations. Both me as like I can't make new cells, so we have to kind of work with the existing like cells that are there, and so changes had to be made on that front. So like when you're writing it, I'm sure you're just kind of like just writing it how artistically it should be, but like when I'm kind of trying to implement it, I have to factor in like what I can and can't do and how I can make certain things work and how I can make.
And there's limitations of the creation engine as well that you have to take into consider. You can't really make new animations, or not easily at least.
Yeah. So you kind of always have to do a workaround. I'm just glad that I figured out how to make Hitch limp over to the side.
Yeah, that was... As I was writing that, I was like, oh man, I hope Chris has some wizardry on his end that he can employ. Because I have no idea how he's going to do this.
Yeah, and that's another good thing about having you write the quest, because had I written it from the start, I would have just ignored things that I didn't know how to do. But when other people write it, then I have to think about it. I'm like, okay, can I do this? Can I have to like try and research it and see if I can, and that helps kind of learn or forces you to learn new skills.
Yeah, it's a nice little problem solving challenge on your end.
Exactly. So I think it turned out well. I think.
I think it turned out really well.
Yeah. So kudos to you. It is all Will's brainchild. So.
My brainchild, but you helped deliver it.
So what else? What other acting things have you done? You're also doing like marketing and commercial work.
Yeah, so my day job, I am a motion graphics designer for a company called Accelerate Media. We mostly do e-learning and kind of like corporate marketing and that kind of stuff. But as a part of that work, I also do voiceover for the company and our clients.
Nice.
Which is basically just standard narration. It's not acting or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I have I've been working there for 3 years, and I already have a huge list of clients that I can put on a resume, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are in like the Fortune 50 and stuff like that. So those are nice names to have in my hopper.
Yeah,
of clients.
So like what type of voiceover is required? It's just standard narration of commercials, like when you hear George Clooney talk about a beer or something, it's like that.
Yeah, it's that, and then also e-learning is kind of its own little voice acting monster or voiceover monster, in that you're not just, your voice has to be pleasant and interesting to listen to, but you're also teaching people how to do something, so you have to be very, very clear and methodical with how you present those lines.
Do they ask you to write or provide feedback on the writing, or?
No. We have a completely separate department of the company who is in charge of instructional design and writing of the courses. So basically, they take care of all of that stuff.
Okay, that's
I
good.
get a script, and then I just record that.
Yeah, because I would imagine that would be a little bit more difficult, because if you don't have like teaching experience, you don't know how to like sort of word things in a certain way. Maybe like, use too much like purple prose or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I would be a disaster if I had to write those courses because I'm not great at teaching just in my normal life. So it's good to have somebody else's words that I can then just read nice and put into a course.
Do you think that would probably be like something like where it would be something you do professionally full time, or do you like your regular job, or?
Well, like I said, it's kind of part of my regular job. I mean, it definitely brings in the bills. I mean, think about it like making a logo versus painting, I guess. So voice acting is definitely the painting. You have more opportunity to be expressive. You can be more abstract. Versus making a logo has rules, and there's very clear guidelines that you should follow to make a logo appealing to someone else. It's the same thing with narration versus voice acting. Narration, you're trying to check off boxes, hit the most amount of people in the best areas possible. Versus acting, you have the ability to kind of flourish a little bit and have some fun with it. And I think that's the difference between corporate and creative.
But the corporate pays, so you gotta.
But the corporate pays, so it's a necessary thing to do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the dream is to have the creative stuff pay, and hopefully, eventually we'll work to that point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the end goal.
So you just gotta keep grinding. Grinding. So speaking of living the dream, pro voice work that you've done, you also did work for a game called Space Pirates and Zombies 2.
Yes.
How did that all come about?
That I stumbled across by random chance on castingcallclub.com. Andrew, who is one of the 2 people who work on the game, it's only a 2-man studio, so that's impressive in of itself. Wow. Yeah. So he posted the casting call on castingcallclub.com, and I just decided, like, it sounds fun, so I'll just go ahead and post an audition. Also, he was going to pay $1,200, so that was a pretty big draw. But
you want the money up front.
Exactly. So I auditioned for, I think there was 3 characters. Yeah, there was 3 characters: Carl, Elsa, and Jameson. Carl and Jameson were the only 2 male parts, so I tried out for both of those. And then once the casting call ended, he called me back and he was like, "Hey, we really like your voice. Can you do another recording? Just tweak these few things." I did that, and then he called me back and he was like, "Yeah, you are easily the person we want for this character." So yeah, I accepted and recorded it, and it was a pretty long part. I think it was about 4,000 words in total. So yeah, it was a hefty amount. But I finished that character, and then, interestingly enough, he contacted me a couple days later. It was like, "Hey, we have this other character that we kind of want to have a voice. Would you do that one too?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And he paid me another $400 on top of it.
So wait, because you mentioned it, I'm curious. It's $1,600 for about 5,000 words?
Thereabouts. That's what they were charging. I mean, that's the thing about voiceover rates. It's kind of variable based on the person offering the role's budget and the voice actor's rates. In this particular instance, he just had the money up front. It was like, "Here's what we're paying for the part." So I didn't really have a whole lot of opportunity to negotiate, which I wasn't going to anyway. That was a very generous contract.
Oh yeah, especially I think how many characters are there in total?
5 total.
5.
Six.
So yeah,
Six total.
It's easy to pay over rate, I think, if you have 5 or 6 characters, I think that's a wise thing to do if you want good quality voice acting.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's good to know. Is 5,000 words? What is that, like 500 lines or no 50 lines? I'm not. My math is just off.
Yeah, line wise, I don't know. It could be anywhere from maybe about 100 to 150, maybe. I mean, that's the thing about scripts. Lines are just this section of dialogue. Okay, moving on to the next line, and it could be of any length. I had a couple of lines that were only like 3 words. I had one line that was 1 word. And then I had another one that was like another 50. So
it's like, ha!
It was ding! That was that line. It's when somebody levels up in the game. My character, Carl, comes on and is like, ding!
Nice.
Which is a throwback to the old WoW days. It's meta humor. Hashtag relevant.
People are going to like Carl then because they're going to associate him with good times.
Exactly, even though he is a sociopathic cyborg. Yeah.
So maybe not so good.
He's a good, in quotes, guy.
So 150 lines would be about, $1,500. Okay.
Yeah.
Just gonna file that away.
Okay, cool. I can send you my rates if you want an idea on how much I charge for stuff.
I might need that at some point. I'm kind of like building my thing, but I'm like, the more I build it, the more I realize like, oh my god, it's gonna cost me like $20,000.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea to maybe talk to a couple of voice actors and get like an aggregate rate based on an average between all of them.
Yeah, because it could come out if you want the whole thing voice, it's looking like 20 to 30 grand, and I'm thinking, oh, so Zelda voices?
Yeah.
Like, what do they do? They just like grunt?
Yeah, exactly. There's just like a sound at the beginning of dialogue, which is it's a nice cost-effective option if you still want voiceover as like flavor in your game, but you don't want to pay for a full script. You can just have.
Well, it's the thing.
Yeah.
It's wanting to pay, and then there's like, can you afford like to pay a reasonable amount? Because it's kind of almost worse if you like pay somebody crap like minimum wage for like really hard labor, you know. So.
And that's kind of the thing with voice acting. You definitely get what you pay for. If you don't have somebody who, like me and a lot of other people on Interesting NPCs, just want to do a good job because we want to, you'll get people who totally phone it in because you're not paying them enough.
Exactly. So it's a whole nother monster. Speaking of other pro work that had complications, you also did voicing for a game called Deceiver, which, from what I hear, as of yesterday, breaking news, is canceled. Yeah. So what happened there?
So my buddy Evan Todd, has been doing full-time development just on his own for the past 4 years. He came out with a game called Lemma, which is available on Steam right now, and actually Jacksepticeye played that on his channel, so it got some pretty decent coverage. But he started another game after that called Deceiver. And yeah, he started a Kickstarter for it, I think was about a month ago or so, and he canceled it like 9 days in because he realized he wasn't making any money off of it. And then as of yesterday, he officially made the announcement that he is canceling the game. He will be releasing what he currently has, which is just the multiplayer for it, for free. So anybody can download that as soon as he releases it. But yeah, he got a big boy job out in California. So he is moving in 2 weeks to go work in California and can unfortunately no longer work on the game he was working on.
Okay. Yeah. So that's like a good story. It's not like one of those like weird.
Yeah, it's not one of those Phil Fish stories where the guy's like, I'm gonna kill myself if this doesn't work.
Just because you hear all these like horror stories with Kickstarters, just like, you know, with money and things like that, and just like complications in politics. But in this case, it was just a guy getting a job in Cali.
Yeah, he just kind of realized, you know, you got to know when to take a knee on things because you don't want to. It's not worth killing yourself over.
Yeah.
Unless you're Phil Fish.
Some people could just be over dramatic, though.
Exactly.
I don't think,
Yeah, there's always that. But yeah, it's a good story. We left on amicable terms, and he knows that if he ever needs me in the future with my voice, he can just contact me, and I'll be there.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, but like the game did look really good.
Yeah,
it was stylized.
It was a very, very good looking game. Evan is a very talented developer, and like I said, it's just him. So, aside from the audio that he was going to put in, which that was me, Jess, and then this guy named Logan was doing the music, it's pretty much just him. And he's not an artist by trade, so he came up with some interesting solutions to the art of the game in making it kind of like Tron-like. So basically, at that point, it's just 3D models with a shader over top of it to give it those, just hit my mic, those hard glowy lines without any textures. Which, if anybody out there is, nice. If anybody is out there familiar with 3D modeling, textures are a nightmare. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of just tools. I think I don't know if he's using Unity, but I think with Unity, there's just like a lot of nice little like shaders. And stuff that make your game look a certain way.
He actually wasn't using Unity. He did everything he wasn't supposed to do as an indie developer and made his own engine for the game.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive in of itself, but doesn't always pay off as we can see now. So
well, yeah. I mean, it depends how like skilled you are as a programmer, because if you are the one who built the engine, you know how it works, you know how to tweak it
exactly
to get it to do what you want. I think the thing about Unity, it's like a little bit of kid gloves. You get like all these assets, but there's little control. It can only do what it's designed to do.
Exactly.
And you could try and make scripts to work around it, but there's less like sort of flexibility. So
versus him, where he made his own engine, like you don't need to Google things because you are the knowledge base for that engine.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's a shame the game won't come out. I'll still be looking for that multiplayer.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a link whenever he comes out with that.
All right, cool.
But yeah, it is a fun game in its own right. I'm just sorry that there apparently wasn't a market for it.
Yeah. Well, the Kickstarter thing, it's like I said, it's a lot of times it comes down to promotion and just getting the word out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the idea that's wrong. It's just the lack of marketing. It's a skill, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find that's like the problem oftentimes with my mods, or like with anything I do. It's like because I'm such a terrible marketer, and that's not a virtue. It's like it's just a skill I don't have.
Yeah.
I have trouble sort of kind of like getting the word out, so I kind of rely on word of mouth, which is easy if you're on the like shoulders of somebody like Bethesda, where a lot of players already play the game.
True.
A lot harder when you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, and I have problems with that too. Like everybody says, as a voice actor, you should get a professional website. I do not have one of those yet. That's something I'm hoping to rectify this year. But again, I am also pretty terrible at marketing myself. And like you said, it's a skill. And if you don't have that skill, it helps if you can pay somebody to do that. And once again, it comes down to funds. You could pay somebody to market you, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to have more outgoing friends, and we're just
exactly. Yep. I need to. Maybe I can talk to Jack, septic guy. I have an in with Evan, kind of.
Yeah. So let's just put it all on Jack. Let's see what he does. Yeah. Hopefully, you can get Jack and others to send out like word of our podcast.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, like, comment, and subscribe. That's the thing you're supposed to say during YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. Right. So, glad everybody's listened. See, I just fucked that up. Thanks for listening. There you go.
There you go.
And like, comment, and subscribe.
There we go.
See, I think that covers it. Thanks for coming on again.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have all your links on the bottom. Anything else you'd like to let people know about yourself?
Not really. I mean, I'm just a voice actor out here.
Third nipple.
Well, we already talked about my barbed wang, so
yeah, yeah. I think we already covered that part then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to have you on.
Yep. Good to be here.
Thanks again for listening. Speaking of voice acting, tune in next week when we have. I have no idea, but we'll have somebody, and I'll put that name in.
Maybe me again. We'll talk.
Maybe it'll be Will. He'll come in. We'll call him Bill
Manford.
Yes.
And I'll just have to come in with a different voice. Hey, I'm Bill Manford. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you, Bill.
Nice to meet you too, Chris.
All right. So tune in next week when we have Bill on and other assorted people.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
See ya.